5 tips for beginners who are trying to get into the modeling space. What do you need to know? Let's dive right into it. Before we get started, I am Kamla-Kay. I'm a professional model, modeling and posing coach, so I have worked with big brands such as Kohl's, David Beckham, Stella McCartney, you name it. So I'm going to give you some of the tips that aspiring models often ask me when they're trying to figure out, can they actually become a model and how do they go about doing that? Okay, tip number 1 is you do not have to have perfect skin or perfect teeth. A lot of times I get teenagers, for instance, asking, is it okay if I have a little acne? Listen, acne is normal. Humans have acne. Now, will there be some agencies that want you to clear up your skin before they actually sign you, or will there be certain brands that prefer you to have clearer skin? Absolutely. But if you have a few blemishes on your face, that does not prevent you from pursuing your modeling goals. In fact, there are some brands that are going to be looking for someone who has acne because maybe they have a skincare product or a beauty product, for instance, that helps to cover that or helps to completely get rid of that. So yes, it would be ideal for you to have clear skin, but if right now you have a few blemishes and you're working to get rid of them, you can still submit to modeling agencies in the pursuit of becoming an agency signed model. And in the same token, let's say that you have braces, glasses, whatever the case is, you do not have to wait until you get your glasses, or until you get contacts rather, or you do not have to wait until you have your braces taken off in order to start pursuing your modeling career now. So go ahead and submit your digitals to agencies, even if you have some of those concerns right now. And all that can happen is an agency can either say, yes, we would love to sign you, or let's wait until XYZ changes. Tip number 2 for beginner models who are trying to get into the modeling industry and book paid work with reputable, legitimate agencies is you want to make sure that you are submitting to multiple agencies. So what happens a lot of times is people will only submit to their dream agency. They'll submit to the big agencies like Next and Elite and IMG, for instance. But a lot of times, if you only submit to those top agencies when you're just starting out, it is a lot harder to get signed to those agencies. And then sometimes it's so much easier for you to get signed and start pursuing your modeling goals if you actually submit to an agency that's considered maybe a lower tier, for instance. There are thousands of models that submit to IMG every single day, so as you can see, IMG is not going to be signing thousands of models every single day, whereas maybe a smaller agency, a more boutique agency, or even a talent agency, for instance. A talent agency is an agency that works with a lot of petite models. They work with commercial models. Those agencies are going to be a lot more receptive to signing different models at different stages in their career. So make sure that when you're submitting, especially if you live in a small town, don't just submit to the 1 or 2 agencies in your area. Go ahead and submit to other states as well, because depending on your age, depending on your look, things of that nature, it's possible that an agency in another state or even another country will offer you a modeling agency contract. So therefore, you're not just limited to pursuing modeling in your town. Feel free to pursue modeling in other areas as well. This step is also really important because when you submit to different agencies, there are a lot of agencies who are actually not even going to see your submission, because again, they get thousands of submissions sometimes per day. So this allows you to open up your chances of getting an agency contract, because you're opening up the pool essentially of the potential agencies who will actually see your submission and will then offer you a modeling agency contract. Before we continue, if you are new to my channel or if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, make sure that you smash that button. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up button as well and leave a comment, because obviously YouTube likes engagement and that just helps my channel, which then encourages me to continue to make these free of charge videos for you. Okay, tip number 3 in terms of making sure that as an aspiring model, as a beginner model, that you are fully understanding the industry. Therefore, when you do get offered a contract by a modeling agency because you've done those things of submitting to lots of different agencies, obviously making sure that they are reputable agencies, and I do have a video on my page talking about how to avoid agency scams, so make sure that you do watch that as well before you start submitting to agencies. But let's say that you have submitted to agencies, you now are getting the chance of being offered a contract. My third tip is that you want to make sure that you do not sign a contract the day that it is offered. When an agency offers you a contract, you want to let them know that you are smart enough, intelligent enough, that you understand the industry, that you're doing things from a business standpoint. And from that standpoint, you want to make sure that you let the agency know, obviously thank them so much for their interest in you and for them offering you a contract, but you want to let them know that you're going to take maybe about a week or so to fully review the contract, and that you will get back with them should you have any questions before you sign that contract. And pro tip, you should always have some questions before you sign the contract, because there's going to be some fine print in there that maybe you want to adjust. So for instance, let's just say that an agency does offer you a 5-year contract, right? And I do not recommend you sign such a 5-year contract. And then I would say, go back to the agency and ask them, hey, can we change this to a 2-year contract, right? Because then you can see better, how are you working with the agency? Are they booking you on jobs, right? So asking those types of questions to make sure that the contract is also in your favor is super important. And it's going to be hard to go through all of those things the day it's offered, especially when your adrenaline is rushing and you're super excited that you got this contract. So always tell the agency that you're going to get back to them before you sign the contract. All right, tip number 4 in terms of making sure that as an aspiring beginner model that you are going along the right path to modeling. And that tip is making sure that you work on your self-confidence. So you probably hear this all the time, but it is really drilled in the industry because there's so much rejection that happens, right? So there are models who, yes, they may book work all the time. Like I have booked work for great brands, but doesn't mean that every casting that I go on or that other models go on, that we actually book that job. Even though we have portfolios that are professional and that are up to agency and brand standards, there are still times where a client may look at you and say, you don't have what it takes to be a model, or they'll just kind of not pay you much attention at a casting, right? And those things, if you haven't developed your self-esteem and your self-confidence to understand that it's more so about the brand and not so about you, then those things can start to really play on your emotions. And in that sense, I will sometimes see that models start to change their diet, trying to change their bodies. And of course, as models, as people, regardless if you're a model, you should be trying to have a healthy body and a healthy, way that you take care of your health. But overall, you don't want to be changing all of those things and not eating enough, for instance, starving yourself because a client said that you were too fat, right? And there are clients that may say that when you're a size 8 or a size 6, and that's clearly not a person that is super overweight or overweight at all, right? So you really have to be mindful that there is going to be levels of rejection. There's going to be moments where you feel like you're not making enough progress. And so working on your self-esteem, your self-confidence is extremely important. There are so many models who go down this rabbit hole, especially maybe if they're in the fashion space, and they just start to lose themselves in terms of their happiness and in terms of the goals that they had for themselves, because they start to realizing that there's so much competition that seems to be coming at them, and then that causes them to start having a lot of doubts, a lot of fears. So we don't want your mental health to be affected. So in that sense, tip number 4, which is the biggest tip of all ultimately, is making sure that you work on your confidence and your sense of self. Before we continue with a big tip, the last tip is I do have a posing course that is coming out. So depending on when you watch this video, it may already be out or it may still just have a few weeks left. But I am creating a posing course to teach you, the model, bloggers, what have you, how to be comfortable on camera, how to get all of those shots that modeling agencies love, and that helps diversify your portfolio. So make sure you go to the description area. There will be a link for you to get on the wait list or to buy the course, depending on what time you see this video. And also in the description area, there is a link for you to get a free downloadable guide from my website. So either way, whether it's the posing course or the free guides, make sure that you go to my description and get that content. And then again, if you have not subscribed, make sure that you hit that button and drop your questions. Let's dive into the last tip for beginner models, aspiring models. And that is, when you get signed to an agency, there is this misconception that it automatically means that you're going to be booking work as a model. That is not the case. So you're thinking, well, why would I sign to the agency if I'm still going to be trying to figure out how to book work? Well, when you get signed to the agency still has to take time to potentially develop you. If you are obviously a new model, you may not have a portfolio yet, or you have a portfolio that's just not up to the agency standards for their clients. So there is going to be a period of months where the agency is developing you, introducing you to clients and things of that nature. So it often does take some time for you to actually start making traction with an agency and actually start booking work. So don't freak out if you've been with an agency for 2 months and you have not booked a job. That is very typical. And then sometimes what you do have to consider, let's just say it's 6 months down the line, you've only gotten 1 or 2 castings, you haven't had any success with this agency, make sure that you're having the conversation with them. Follow up with your agency every 6 weeks or so and say, hey, is there anything that I need to be doing? Do you need to get new digitals from me? Make sure that if there's something that has changed with your body, you gaining weight, losing weight, all of those things are things that you need to update your agency with, because it could potentially increase your chances of booking more work or finally booking work, or it could also hinder your chances of booking work. But you always have to be honest with your agency, because you never want to show up to a job, for instance, and the client is not getting what they were expecting from you in terms of looks, body type, whatever the case is, right? So always update your agency in that sense. But let's just say that maybe it is that 6-month period or whatever, you haven't really had much communication from your agency, they don't seem to be forthcoming and really aiding you in this process. Then you really do need to have a sit down heart to heart with the agency and determine, like, hey, is this a contract that we need to continue to be in? Obviously, if you are in a 2 to 3 year contract, there are some agencies that will not allow you to get out of the contract early. But generally speaking, if you approach the agency, you let them know your concerns, it'll either be where they agree and they will allow you to end the contract early if you have concerns and you say, hey, I'd like to try to someone else. Or maybe they'll start working with you in a different capacity because you have brought it more to their attention. And so obviously sometimes you're thinking, well, why do I have to do all of this? Shouldn't the agency be on top of it? But the truth is, a lot of times the agencies are focusing on the models that are already booking jobs. And so sometimes, yes, you need to push a little bit harder, but make sure that you're always doing it respectfully and that you're not bombarding the agency every week with an email, because that gets annoying for them as well. And then they will really start ignoring you. All right, that is it for this week's tips on making sure that you are pursuing the industry in the proper realm, how to prepare yourself as a beginner aspiring model. So I will see you in the next video, and hopefully you've already hit the subscribe button and go and check out the description area for those links that I talked about as well. See you next time.